challenges are there that having such type of that cloud-based network where the 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 attack may be at the controller side or at the edge system side, whether that may be of the end computer, mobile, or the IoT device. We do require to go for a better mechanism to ensure that any such type of the attack, if it has been there, that need to be mitigated. So pertaining to that, this is the two part of my presentation. One is that having a cloud-based scenario where we require to establish one network where we'll have to use the mechanism where we have to look into that what part and in what fashion so that the attack will be or the man in middle attack can be there. And if we make that environment where the vulnerability can be exposed of and the solution pertaining to that is required to have those type of the solutions where we can minimize the type of the attack. So a major task pertaining to this is that the system has to be secure, system has to be manageable, system has to be uh, sufficient enough to identify if certain type of the attack, like the man in middle attack, which can be at any level of abstractions, whether that may be on the hardware, like the Shamoon attack, or the any application program, or any bottleneck that can be created at the uh, transmission channel or the bandwidth compromise. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there. So in the most of the scenario, in order to make the secure communications, what we do expect that the data upon which that or the network upon which that message is being transmitted, in that case, that integrity of that need to be checked. In that case, the third party should also be involved to give this assurance that the site using which you are transmitting that is a secure one, and the authoritative type of that monitoring system which will be controlling such type of that with a certain type of the hash values and the encryption techniques. Like RC4 is commonly being used in that communication in the Gmail, or this MD5 type of the techniques is also been there, a message digest algorithms which has been there. So in that, the main thing is that having a networking environment in the cloud-based type of the system where the two end nodes are required to make the communications. In that case, I would prefer to use the two key encryption algorithms or that two asymmetric type of that keys that one should use in order to secure the communications. So in that, we have gone through the variations of all those two key encryption mechanism or the key handshaking techniques, and over them all, we try to identify that whether these type of that transmission using this encryption to asymmetric cryptographic communication, whether that type of the mechanism is still vulnerable. Pertaining to that, the challenges are there, and we have tried to mitigate that using the multimodal learning mechanism. As in the previous sessions, I insisted or that stated that there are the four different type of the data which can be communicated or which has to be transmitted. One is that the text data, which is the plain text of the information. Another is the image. Third is that audio, and fourth is the video. So varieties of the ways and their that type of the uh, recording mechanism are there, and the text creations are there, which is required to be transmitted. Like in the image, we have the variations of the type of the image, JPG, MP, JPG, GIF, PNG, okay, or GIF. Multiple type of that formats are there. Likewise, for the videographic also MPEG, AVI, TIF, ABL, and that's MP4. Pertaining to that, the variations of this type of the different type of the input is. So having all these sort of the input available and the multi-channel modules where I do not know which node is transmitting which type of the information which is being transmitted over that cloud system. The controller has to handle all this data stream and it has to identify that which part of that is vulnerable. I do require to have explore the varieties of these variations of the data and identify that which is creating the nuisance, which is the man in middle attack, which may create that obstacle in the system, which may lead to compromise the system. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there. Once that network is being compromised, it may not allow you to communicate. It will delay your processing part. It may go on the infinite loop. It may inject multiple such type of data similar stream to accumulate or that burst of the data so that the traffic can jam. And uh, in that case, the other systems, the similar type of the attack can be communicated to the other one. In that case, the device may also get compromised. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there that having such type of the scenario with the system, can I have the better methodology to abstain or protect my system, and what sort of the mechanism or that I should apply so that my system will be protected, it will perform as per that need and requirement, and the output of that, if it is been there, some sort of this attack is there, in that case that can be mitigated. So this is what the first presentation is pertaining to that multimodal channel. Multimodal implies I am using the varieties of the data mainly that takes audio, video, and image. Now, as I said that there are the multiple number of the variations pertaining to that, and in that case, my system should be able to handle those type of the input and their vulnerability, and if that has been there, in that case, I do require to identify that which physical system which is trying to connect the network and maligning that informations or making the system compromise. So pertaining to that, this is what that presentation is. So as I said that either I have the two options pertaining to this. One is that I require to make secure my own network system. In our institute, we have our own network system. Okay. Now, this network system can be monitored, controlled without a centralized controlling system, where the controller has to look into that which node is creating more traffic to the network, whether the other whether that artificially generated or the large files which are being transmitted over that from that node over the channel. In that case, whether that information is a uh, a, 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 uh, means that information which you can claim that should not be transmitted and that is related to that institute only, and it should not be imparted to another one. Okay, so we have to look into such type of that situation. Pertaining to that, the every industry, every organizations where the coding operations or that maintaining part of the system that is to be maintained. In that case, each device which is being provided to the user, each that network over which that the node is connected, and that from where that is, server system, the other part that is to be managed and controlled, they will have to constantly manage that. So this is what that network is. Other thing is that it is a common type of the network. Anyone can participate. In that case, the vulnerability or the chances of getting compromised the system is more. So in that case, we do require to define such type of the system. So usually this cyber physical system, in that the more critical one is that which is related to that industry level 4. I will give two examples pertaining to that. One is related to this healthcare and another is to that industry. You may be knowing this Aramco industry, Gulf industry, my largest that oil refinery that is in the Middle East, their network were compromised using the Shamoon attack. You have to click on that SHOON Shamoon attack, and that lead to that compromise of the majority of their system. So in that case, the ransomware that they have inserted over the channel, they extracted all their valuable informations and force them to give that ransom. Otherwise, their sensitive information may be disclosed. So, pertaining to that, the other agencies in India were also been compromised, like that major company who is providing the largest data or that network, this communication network in the India, that were also compromised. Another is this latest one, which was held over that in the AIMS, where the two server system in that AIMS building were compromised, and they asked that their information will be seized. You will not be allowed to use that, and their sensitive data may be leaked. So it could happen that the important person's informations may be lying over there, and their informations may be shared, and that may create the panic. So something like that is very important and that need to be handled. So what this healthcare, the AIMS did that they, once that information was, they came to know that the system are getting compromised, they just, the persons to whom that was involved in order to isolate the system, he first disconnected these two server systems, and the third system where that replica was there, he put that also in the hold and tried to recap all those informations within that two server systems with that additional protections, so that the replica of that would be maintained and the new systems, and with that multiple protections layers that was initiated to make that something like that in the future should not happen. Pertaining to that, the challenges is there that if I use this software-defined network, which was initially initiated by the DARPA in 2009, one person pertaining to this who was involved in this construction or making of this software-defined network was from the Kent University. He visited our institute and he asked me to make a controller of this SDN controller on the switch, which is a patented of the Chinese company, and everyone has to use that. Such type of the challenges were there at that time. So I'm talking about this way back a 10-year back period. So having such type of the software-defined network with that TensorFlow, I can visualize that how much the traffic is going on from which computer or which part of the network is busy. In that case, I may add a certain path, I may restrict the certain part from my own system and working as a remote controlling system or that main network controller and manage this entire system. So it was in that impression that the entire world network would be managed in such a way. So there was the one conference we conducted last year in the December 2023 in the ANTS conference. The keynote persons who has delivered the talk pertaining to that the high-speed communications which has been used in the America at the different location near to that California. I asked him pertaining to this software-defined network that are you using this in order to manage and control this network system? He said that this is only for that localized network system, not related to that entire world network system. pertaining to that the challenges are there, so that the such type of the network establishment is the challenging one, and we do require to have the better mechanism to control that. So everyone has the right to earn the privacy, and their challenges are there that something that should not be there if that the network is open. So pertaining to that, again, the challenges are there. Once that network is open, in that case, the man-in-middle attack can occur. So having that type of the scenario, whether with that SDN-based system, where the controller may get compromised, or that the end node, the user, that may get compromised, and that would lead to the affecting of that entire networking system. So pertaining to that, this talk is related to that how we can do with this SDN based system or the generalized system which is being used where that vulnerability are. So pertaining to this, the two things are there. The communication which is being taking place with that of the multiple number of the nodes, and one node has to communicate to the another one. So how do we communicate? In that case, the criteria is that they're having the network scenario over here, the other node which may be having the other type of the networking scenario. So in between that, the router has to manage the protocol stack of the two different type of the network. So pertaining to that, the packet which are being transmitted from the one network, it has to go from the other level of the abstraction of that OSI model which has been used, either that be of the OSI reference model or the TCP/IP protocol suite or the ISDN based type of the network or the FDDI token raising by based type of the network. Each of this network is having the different set of the protocol, and their protocol stack has to be managed by the in between devices which are providing sort of that network connection. I hope that majority of you may be knowing this thing, and if something like that is been there, in that case, the network which is there, the packet which are being collected and recompiled and transmitted in the localized type of the network, this is permissible to optimize the maximum utilization of the resources. Unlike that, in that network scenario where the open network is there, in that case, the reassembly is not permitted at the intermediate level, but that protocol stack has to be maintained. Now, pertaining to this, I would refer to that having such type of that distributive, distinctive, and the separate networking environment which are being used in the internet, the more chances of the vulnerabilities are. And pertaining to that and variations of the data, you may know that all these streams are currently going on. In that case, we have to think on and manage that. So pertaining to this, two device who wants to make the communication, in that case, there is an application layer gateway in order to transfer the information. And in order to transfer the information from the one end to the another end using that application, which may be a gateway like the Gmail or the mailing server system. Okay, so unless that mailing server system does not allow me to, if I do not connect them, I would not be allowed to put my information, and that will not be visible to the other user unless it does not open that application. So likewise, there are the multiple such type of the applications which would allow you to go through and give this authentication, and based on that you would be allowed to see those type of the content and the data and updations if it has been required, and what's out of that applications that allows you, you can perform that. So if the system of the some company is compromised, if the resources are being shared or transmitted or the leaked, in that case, the system is referred to as a vulnerable and the attack is been there, and we have to mitigate them, reduce them, block them as much as possible. So can I have the better mechanism which it has to visualize having such type of the attack with the variants of the data or and the variants of the type of the network. So concerning thing is that I want my network to be much better secure network. Well, how can I claim that? Okay, so in that case, one solution is that anything which I am transmitting pertaining to that, the hash value should be there. So likewise, in this, the secure or that any error which may be a noise, which may be a scrambling of the data, or that the reassembling, if it is been done at the intermediate layer, that is not proper. So in that case, such type of the things it has to be monitored and controlled. For that purpose, this SDN has been designed. As I said that there are the 7 layer of the abstraction in the OSI layer model and the 4 layer of the abstraction in the TCP/IP protocol suite. I do not know what type of the data is at that level, any level of abstraction. In that case, having a controller at the application layer which can easily monitor at each and every level of the abstraction of this of that network operating software, where all these levels where that data is being transmitted or the forwarded, their values, their integrity are being managed and controlled and seen by the software defined network. And this is what that SDN is. Now, pertaining to this SDN, which is having that additional controller layer, which at the application, which has to control all those flow within that particular network or within that particular system, it has to see that where that data which has been streamed, that is been compromised or not. So this is what that network control is. This is what that the identifying of the target is. This is what that the vulnerability is, where that attack can be possible. So what could happen if I say that the controller itself is compromised? In that case, the garbage will be there. That the attack is on that controller, which is unable to identify the man in middle attack, and the system which are connected, monitored, controlled by the controller itself would be compromised. Okay, so pertaining to that, the challenges are there. How can we do and explore that such type of the situation can be mitigated or that can be minimized? Okay, so in this, as I said that there are the two key asymmetric cryptography encryption algorithms which are commonly being used in order to transfer the data from the source to destination. Agam Singh, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
So, in between, please ask the other student or the participant if any queries they have in their mind. So, 4 base type of the algorithms currently existing pertaining to that two key asymmetric cryptography for transmitting the information from the source to destination. The most common is the RSA, which is also being used in the Gmail for making this key asymmetric cryptography. Another is this the lightweight Diffie-Hellman algorithm. The third one is this elliptical curve cryptography, which can be asymmetric, which can also be treated as a symmetric. So the flexibility with this, that the type of the curve which edge you want to use, whether that is having the 2 point or the single point of that curve, elliptical, which you want to that key pertaining to that point you want to use for making that key and the transmission of the data using that key. So, but other than this, another one is that Aljaman. Okay, so in this Diffie-Hellman, as I said in the previous slide, or मैंने बताया था कि पहले Diffie-Hellman का इनको The Agam Singh,
Yes, sir.
had we previously discussed about this Diffie-Hellman in this talk?
No, sir. No, sir. Not in this FDP.
Okay, so I will give this example. Suppose this is some sort of that data or the packet where some information is there, that this is the box which is containing some valuable information which I'll have to transfer to the another one. And now I put one lock over here. Okay, this is the one lock which I have made. Okay, the another lock which I want to make is I do again create, and the first thing is that having this information with this lock, I have to transmit that, and I transmit to the some other person. He received this information, he see that it is logged, and the key pertaining to this lock I do not know. So what I will do that I will do, or the receiver who received this information which is logged, unable to open this, now he again himself add some more lock from his own side and transmit that to the end user, or to me again. Okay, now on receiving this back to me, where I have put this lock from my side, I know that what is the key, I do have the in my possession, and I open this. Okay, now this data is with that lock which is been retransmitted and back to me with this new key which I do not have, that locking information which of which I do not have any key. Now I return back to the end user. On receiving this end user, he will see that this is the key which this is the lock which I have created, and the key I do possess. I will open that. Now I can visualize and open this information. This is what this Diffie-Hellman perform, and pertaining to that, the simplified way of making such type of the operation can be easily performed. Likewise, the Riemann-Scheinman and Eldman RSA key exchange algorithm is, which is also lightweight, and they have their own the encryption mechanism which allows you to use in order to perform the encryption and decryption. The elliptical curved cryptography is commonly being used in the blockchain type of the networking system, where that the concerning thing is that the data need to be more secure and efficient one. Okay, so in that case, the complexity pertaining to that would be more. So in that, the concerning thing is that if the system is allowing and is agreed upon giving this the more times to decrypt that information without having the additional computation, that would be much more preferable. Okay, so in that case, it would be a good criteria to use that, and that is why this is commonly being used in the cryptography algorithm in the blockchain type of that networking environment. Okay, so the latest one is this. Prior to that, I will give this example of this Diffie-Hellman algorithm. So what does this Diffie-Hellman algorithm do? That it is having the means these are based on this. Likewise, this RSA, Guybrush, Shamir, and Alman, which they have created. Likewise, this Diffie and Martin Hellman have introduced this with this the two asymmetric key encryption mechanism, which is being used in order to transmit the data from the source to destination. As I give this example pertaining to this, the Diffie-Hellman is having the allows the two user to exchange two different type of the keys, or allows them to use this. One is the public key, another is the private key. So in that case, prior to them, that the private key is available, and the secret information key which they would have to possess with them, and only that has to be used in order to decrypt that. So in that case, the two-way encryption or that the transmission of the data is to be there in over that untrusted type of the network, where they could be able to open them and visualize them. It's related. After this, I will give you another example. You have to remind me again that what was that example which we used to do in our earlier times to make such type of that protected communication system. Likewise, because in that the encryption is again required to be used in between in order to make that more secure. So I'll give you the two examples pertaining to that. You have to remind me that. I may miss, sometimes it happens. So while making this a secure type of the communication pertaining to the data which is important and that need to be reliably transmitted over that secure communication channel. So level of that abstraction where that a security need are required or security is required will have to you explore them and protect the network system. So in this, two things are there. One is that the key which I do want, the other one who wants to use key and some prime numbers upon which that computation need to be performed. So the two large prime numbers are recommended to make that the secret key which can be or that the key which can be exchanged and based on that they can open that information. So one is that the prime number P and G and that primitive root of and that key numbers. So let us take an example. The P and G are the both number which are available and it should be multiple of the 512 bits and the user has to pick their values A and B. Now what does this Diffie-Hellman say is that we have to create this value X and Y using this G and P, which are the large prime number, and the private key A and B, which have been defined or given by the or which are the private keys of the user. So A will create this value X based on this G A mod P value. The Y will be generated from the other user, which will be GB mod P. So these are the two values which are to be exchanged. Okay, so X and Y are to be exchanged. Now, this is the scenario Bob with that classical example of this Bob and Alice, where the third party or the public key with that is certified certifications. Most of the cases you would find that the Gmail, whatever that we are using, if it is open, let me check that the network I have opened that Gmail or not. Okay, it is not open. So this key is to be exchanged among the two different type of the node. Having these values with this with X and Y, they will have to compute this another computation using the values which has been transmitted from the other user. So the node A has generated some value X, node B has generated some value Y. Okay, and this A and B using that value of the Y A mod P is to be created this key value and X B mod P is to be created that will create another key value. Now when we apply such type of the formula, in that case the key value A and B would be same. So having this same key value, they would be able to open that. So this is what the criteria is for this Diffie-Hellman type of the encryption, asymmetric encryption technique. So in this, in that scenario, networking scenario, the encryption and decryptions are required to be made and the symmetric key are to be provided on the data and the additional key has to be exchanged among them and using that the encryption has to be done and the data can be decrypted. Okay, so pertaining to that, the data which is being overlapped with that key is being transmitted. Now pertaining to that, as I said that to remind me, the data itself is not scrambled and that may be visualized or that can be identified that whether this is a image or this is the text or whether this is the audio or this is the video. If something like that has been there, in that case, how can I know? How can I ensure that the data should not be visible? What is the nature and what is the content of the data pertaining to that? The challenges are there to make that cryptography of type of that output or the generation of that at the node level. Based on that, the hash value has to be generated, likewise, which is been used in the blockchain, and the data with that CRC is to be transmitted with this additional key information. So in this, if the two users who wants to transfer certain encryption algorithm that has to be asked to apply this information, the data has to be encrypted and that has to be decrypted using the decryption algorithms, and that would be received at the receiving end. Pertaining to that, the example is that some Alice wants to make that communication with the Bob, but there is a bad man in between. Now, this bad man is eager to listen that what type of information they are sharing, whether that is a communication, whether that is a text message, or whether that is a audio video type of the communication. Now, this Defi Herman has to ensure that this bad man should not be able to listen. Because Bob and Alice know that this is a unreliable type of the network. There is no alternate, that no other secure type of the communication channel is available. They will have to bear that. Now they will have to make this secure information by applying this Diffie-Hellman approach. So, likewise, as I said that the third party certifications is the part of that public key which has been provided that gives this authentication, so that the channel which you are using this public key would give this assurance that the channel is secure, much secure. You can use that with your information exchange policy, whatever that we want to make. So let us say, take an example that the P and G values which ought to be the prime number, let us say this 9 and the 23 are the values. Now, as it is expected that the value of this number should be large. Okay. Now, the value of this, using that very first formula, with that the GA mod P and GB mod P is to be used. Here, this 4 and 3 are the values provided by the Bob and Alice. Now, in this, it gives the value 6 and 16. Now, this is 6 and 16 is the general number, whatever that may be, that is been exchanged. And because they do not know these P values, okay, and the G value, the key has to be generated using this. So the 16 and 6 were not aware about this, the third person. So in that case, the key value based on this formula, YA mod P and the KB with the XB mod P. While solving this, that will give this common key or this 9 values, using which they would be able to see their information, whatever that they have communicated. So this is the simplest way, or we can say this is the lightweight type of the protocol which is commonly being used in the most of the communication channel. Now, likewise, in this, such type of this application is being used in the cloud-based type of the network where the intermediate nodes that the end node who are using this secure socket layers using the SSH or using this IP security or the public key infrastructure, because the construction of this public key infrastructure is a difficult one. So anyone agency who is providing such things would have to pay more for making the more secure communication. So all those agencies, government or private organizations, they will have to pay for that in order to make their network secure. So pertaining to this, as I said that the three algorithms which I have explained pertaining to that, I have elaborated explicitly this Diffie-Hellman algorithm. The another Al-Jamal algorithm, which is a new criteria pertaining to that, it not only provides this 2K handshaking process of exchanging of the key, it also provides that the flexibility of the encryption of the information. So it has its own encryption mechanism, whereas we can also apply the other type of the cryptographic algorithms like the AES-DS. Along with that, the key exchange mechanism which has been used by the either the Jamal or the Diffie-Hellman algorithm. And we shall go for this that having such type of the scenario with this Diffie-Hellman, Al-Jamal, or this the RSA and DSA algorithm, okay, over the network of the software-defined network, how that can be mitigated or that can be used. Just 2 minute wait. Agam, Agam Singh,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want 2 minute break.
Okay, okay, sir.
हंसी चलने लग गई मेरे को.
Okay, sir.
ना कर देगा तो बढ़िया होगा, फिर मैं आपको ही दे दूंगा। ठीक है, मैं बता दूँ। Agam Singh,
Yes, sir.
can we start again?
Yes, sir. We can start now. Yes, sir. The screen is visible.
Just hold on. Okay, so let us the further part of our research which we had done. Pertaining to that, there were many challenges.
Sir,
That-
the screen is not shared. Please share it again.
Screen,
Sir, the slides are not showing.
is it visible now?
No, sir.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Huh. So am I audible and visible to all the participants?
Yes, sir. You are audible and visible.
Okay, good. So pertaining to this, the challenges were there that I do require to have those type of the scenario with the with the networking system which we require to create and upon which that has to be managed and visualized and that should be properly observed wherever that vulnerability is. In that case, that has to be handled. So pertaining to this, either that could be a centralized, localized, network-based, cloud-based system, or that could be a generalized, distributed type of that cloud-based networking environment. So two things I would discuss pertaining to this, that having the such type of that limitations of getting that man in middle attack, varieties of the attacks and the challenges and the virus attack that could be there. So in the cloud-based networking environment, it is not necessary that only a single approach would be sufficient. Multiple number of the cloud-based protection tools are being used in order to protect them at every level of abstraction. And in that case, the vulnerabilities of them are there, which are required to be mitigated. The software which are being used, they'll have to update that their software, their signature values, their supporting files attachment, so that similar type of that attack pertaining to that, if it has been there, in that case that could be easily identified and blocked. Pertaining to this, the vulnerability or the more exposure using this man in the middle attack to the network scenario, we have tried to make our own using the artificially, synthetically injecting similar type of that pattern which are being transmitted by the end systems. Getting my point? मेरे पास में 50 सिस्टम 1000 सिस्टम है कौन से सिस्टम में कौन सा डेटा जा रहा है मुझे पता नहीं, बट मेरे पास में सिंथेटिकली जनरेटिंग का सिस्टम है विद दैट man in million attack one person who has compromised the controller, and now I am making those type of the similar text pattern which are being transmitted by the nodes. Now similar pattern, if it is been there, the controller will say, oh okay, it is good, this is the text, this is the audio, this is the video, let them carry on. But that would lead to the compromise to the end system. So having those type of the attack, can I identify them precisely and preemptively? I can measure them and block those type of the nodes who are creating such type of the nuisance. So pertaining to that challenge, we have tried to focus and applied our best approach to mitigate this. So what is expectation is that having a large networking environment of the balanced type of the network, where I'm emphasizing on this part, whereas this has been used in the cloud-based networking environment, as it can be used in the selective area-based or the organization-based networking environment, where that multiple different variations of the attack can be there. So in no, no. अच्छा. I use this entire screen now. Is the slide visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the previous slide, where I was stating about this, that the simulation environment. So in that case, the mostly in the cloud-based systems, the thousands of the nodes are there, where the other node who are, some of them are connecting, some of them are removing, and the variations of that time would be there. So which node is getting connected, which node are now going into the hibernation mode. In that case, pertaining to that, the log file is to be created, and information which has been transmitted over them, in that case, how much time that is taking place. So the secure state communication would require the better throughput and the lower latency, even though that encryption algorithms or that handshake. Now, in a generalized normal type of the scenario where that the node who is normally transmitting or the expected time of that data transmission is there, if that has been increased in the manifold, you could say or look into that, or what would be the reason they using which that system is getting this much of the delay, whether that node or that intermediate system or that part of the network is compromised. The total time is spent pertaining to that for each and every transitions or interconnections, or that stage where that the data is being forwarded from the one node to the another node, and so on. In that distributed cloud environment, the total transmission time is to be estimated. Whereas this is the key factor for deciding that whether that network is being compromised or not. So having said that, we can say that having a centralized computing based environment where the controller is there and the variations of the data which is being provided by the multiple number of the source. The data can be of the text, data can be audio, data can be video, data can be audio, data can be video, and that has to be transmitted over the destination channel. But the controller is compromised with the man in middle attack. Now it will create this data, it will analyze this what type of the source that is taking place, it will create its own log data, and it will inject a similar type of the pattern pertaining to that type of the text or the data which has been transmitted. अब वो ऑडियो है तो ऑडियो का होगा, वो टेक्स्ट है तो वो टेक्स्ट का होगा, वो इमेज है तो इमेज में भी वो दूसरी उल्टी सीधी इमेज भी उसमें डाल सकता है. तो that would imply that the destination may be compromised. Now, the data which is been transmitted over the channel, in that case, we require to find out that this data which has been transmitted, uh, that is a correct one or that is a malignant or that has been compromised. So in that case, certain type of that pattern similar to that can also be added to make that more exposure of that vulnerability on the data, the variations of the data can be there. So in that case, the additional data quite similar to that the attacker has generated can be synthetically created using the SMOT. This is the additional add-on library which has been used. Based on that, the type of the pattern of the data that has to be shared or that has to be passed through those type of the features pertaining to that. The features are the important criteria for deciding the nature of the data and their vulnerability if it has been there. So the more number of the features, if it has been there, the better the quality of that identification of the man in middle attack would be. So pertaining to this, as I said that the data which has been synthetically generated, likewise which has been generated by the man in middle attack, which is assumed to be the compromise with the data string and embedded with that data, and now this data has to be transmitted. So this is the very first part where we have to do or make that system vulnerable. Now how in efficient way I can identify that whether this data is compromised or not. So pertaining to this, the second part would be that I'll have to look into those type of that data which has been created and the feature pertaining to that has been identified and that has to be marked, and based on that the pattern has to be analyzed. So in that case, all those the predictive model has to give us those type of the values where the changes are maximum. So the receiving and the derived values of the information would be that with that additional data which may be of any type, either that may be the text, audio, video, or image, and that is to be evaluated and required to determine that this is having this excessive additional information which is a criteria of those type of the features that is leading to a attack, identification of the attack. So this is what that unique pattern that we require to determine. Based on that the decision has to be taken whether this type of the data is compromised. डेटा में भी टेक्स्ट ऑडियो वीडियो एनीमे 4 टाइप का मैं बोल चुका हूँ, तो वो होता है तो इसमें कौन सा इसमें सही है कौन सा नहीं है, this liability has to be decided. So how can I decide? In that case, the pattern pertaining to that with those type of the features are to be collected and that has to be submitted to the machine learning algorithm. The machine learning algorithm would look into this multi-model data, combine them together and see that what type of the features that are there. The features likewise in that most type of that machine learning techniques, we require to have the multi-level model where that based on that features the identifications of that in that convolution based network to be required to identify, and among them the decision has to be taken with that multiple number of the force whether that is in attack or not. So if the features are similar or that there is no change and the pattern is not compromised based on those type of the features, we can say that okay, this is not an attack, and the other one which we could claim that that is a there is an attack. So pertaining to this, the fusion mechanism implies that having those type of the information, either that may be of the text information, image information, video, pertaining to that the validation or the training and testing part of that is required. So first we require to train the system that if it is a text pattern, in that case the pattern of this would be this, and similar to that. And in that the features pertaining to that require to be identified, and that has to be given to the machine, and the machine would have to test them and train them based on that 80-20 pattern which we have used over here to look into that whether this is a compromise or not. So based on that, the quite similar to that the model is been trained for the different type of the data, इमेज के लिए, वीडियो के लिए और ऑडियो के लिए. अब इसमें सबके जो है वो मॉडल is trained, है ना. In that case, the training would imply that will give us some sort of the solution. In that case, we require to apply that in the manifold. So in that case, one time, not only for the one time, multiple number of time with that multiple number of the features. The larger number of the features which you take, the better would be that the decision would be. So in that case, 10 decision trees using this random forest to be applied, and try to identify that whether the data is considered to be a vulnerable or not. So this is what that patterns in the next stage that for the variations of the data has been applied, and that log file has been created to inform or that give us that the validation in the form of this validated data that whether this is vulnerable or not. So now, as I said, that it is not necessary that I may use a single type of the data. It is not okay. So what we have done, this is a vast exercise that has been done for the variance of the data. That is why it is being considered as a multi-model, and the variations of all these asymmetric cryptographic techniques currently available and being used. We have explored them using that that encryption time, decryption time, the amount of the time that is taking place in order to compute that encryption and the decryption. And if a certain type of the error, if it has been there, in that case, the mean square error or the root mean square error that are also being computed, and the R square gives this the total analysis of that which lead to that higher accuracy, or to be having that higher accuracy. So as you can see over here, that the audio with the Alzheimer, the latest new encryption mechanism, having this lesser amount of this encryption time, lesser amount of this, I mean, some decryption time, it is taking more. Energy is slightly higher than the Diffie-Hellman, okay, but lesser than the RSA, okay. And it is giving this 99% of the accuracy. So having this 99% accuracy, this implies that it is the better approach compared to the other one, but maybe having the slightly more energy that need to be consumed. In the audio and image, especially in this case, we'll have to focus on the audio and image. Audio is that less vulnerable, and that is giving that better accuracy. The image are more vulnerable because the majority of the people who are transmitting the attacks can be maximum, and that may be possible. And quite similar to that, the analysis of the data as shown over here would indicate that it is also this Alzheimer outperform pertaining to the performance. While seeing over here with this, the amount of the energy that need to be consumed and the amount of the times that need to be taken in order to compute that. So pertaining to that, it is having the less amount of the error, and it is giving that a higher accuracy. So for every type of that research work where we require to analyze the data pertaining to that, if the errors are been there or the variations of the data is there, In that case, the average of that data, the average of the occurrence of the error that can also be evaluated using the uh, other type of the um, uh, error evaluation technique, and the R square value has to be maximized. So in that case, the map is that another patterns where that the deviations pertaining to that the output which we are receiving, how much that deviation is pertaining to that the decision can be taken. So in this, all these variations of the type of the data that has been explored, and we have observed and find that this Jamal is outperforming compared to those, whereas it is having a slightly overhead pertaining to the computation time under the unlike that has been there with this Diffie-Hellman algorithm. Okay, other are more complex in nature like this ECC. So in that case, obviously this would be giving that higher computation time for the other type of the data. But as you can see, this audio is giving this less type of the vulnerability, and whereas this image and text are more vulnerable and that are having the larger rate of the error, which indicates that the system are getting compromised. So those type of that measure, as I said, that the higher score of this R square is desirable. The error chances of getting the error for not identifying the vulnerability should be less, implying that the system should be robust and it has to give that accurate information whether that is vulnerable or not. So in that case, the energy consumption pertaining to that, the amount of that operation it need to perform, like the RSA, it is giving this 42.92 or the 51.99 for the encryption and decryption. You can see how much the energy that has been there in order to compute. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there where we require to mitigate the energy while maximizing the performance of the system. So in this, we require to evaluate that in the better and better way. So what has to do in order to perform such type of the computation? Obvious thing is that we require to take more input from the more sources and requires to evaluate them based using the variations of this encryption algorithm. Now having this, when we try to increase the number of the node from the 100 to the 1000, the generalized text information attack has been reduced from the 88, where that the possibility of getting a take was 88%, that has been reduced to the 45. Okay, the other video is giving this 91 to the 36%. So this is the vast change in this, but still it is vulnerable. It is giving this 36%, still that is the large one. That means that 100 में से मेरे अगर वो होते हैं तो भी उसमें से 36 कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो ही रहे हैं. तो मैं नोड को बढ़ा रहा हूँ, ट्रेन कर रहा हूँ सिस्टम को, ट्रेन करते करते भी वो 91 से 36 पर आ गया, बट 36 भी ज्यादा नंबर है कि भाई इतने 36 सिस्टम कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो रहे हैं, उनके अंदर तो वल्नरेबिलिटी हो रही है, वो मेरे सिस्टम को कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर रहे हैं. तो होना क्या चाहिए? What is expected from our side is that we want to create this type of the network where I would be allowed to make this, instead of 1000 it should be 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 node, and that the source of the data stream, variants of this data stream that I will have to apply and explore them with those type of the vulnerabilities and see that how the percentage of that success rate that I can achieve, implying that the devices which are vulnerable should be identified and that can be mitigated. Likewise, here look over here at the audio. The 1000 पे जब हमने सिस्टम को ट्रेन करा तो कहाँ वो 87% शो पर आ रहे थे, सारी जितनी भी इंफॉर्मेशन है वो वल्नरेबल में काउंट हो रही थी। 200 पे बढ़ाया तो आधी हो गई, 300 पे बढ़ाया तो फिर चेंज हो गई, 400 पे बढ़ाया तो सिस्टम बेहतर हुआ, ओवर ट्रेन हुआ, 1000 पे तो जीरो हो गया। दैट मीन्स कि अब कोई भी सिस्टम ऐसा नहीं है जिसपे भी हमारे को उसमें जो है ना वो अटैक वो कर पा रहा हो। It implies that we require to have a large data set, larger computations, with that a larger number of the node, with that varieties of the data, where that the system is able to identify and rectify those type of that vulnerabilities. Pertaining to that image, in last, you can see that the 30% reduction in that chances of getting the attack is still that the number is too large, that has to be uh, looked into. So more research part pertaining to this is required, where the large computation using that methodology which I had discussed has to be explored, and more type of that patterns has to be used in order to train the system so that it would be able to identify and restrict them by using that the authenticate third-party authentication system, which will handle such type of the attacks. So now, while having the variations of the data, two different type of the measuring techniques are there. One is this correlation matrix, another is the confusion matrix. So the correlation is gives this a similarity part, whether that the data which is being provided, that how much they are similar, or how much they are varied. Pertaining to that, the decision has been taken whether that is to be counted as a malignant or that has been counted as a benign. Malignant and benign is being used for the image, like that in the audio and text, we can say that whether that has been compromised or not. So in that case, this shows that the values are very much near to that the same. In that case, the system is not vulnerable, whereas the other part it shows that the closeness are there is a less closeness, implying that the data is varying and synthetically somebody is injecting that which is not of the same pattern. So the confusion matrix indicates that how many number of, out of the 10,000 the approach is, or 1 lakh patterns which has been injected over this 40 plus 30, 70 plus 30, 20 and 10, तो 1 लाख पैटर्न हो गए। तो उसमें से कि कितना जो है उसमें वो ट्रू पॉजिटिव था कि भाई अटैक हैज बीन आइडेंटिफाइड, और कितना था जिसमें कि उनमें भी वो हम आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर पाए। तो एक्चुअल अटैक 1 implies दैट कि वो हुआ था उसमें, और उसमें से 47907 were able to identify, and other were that which were not being identified. That means 470 were the true actual attacks, but they were not be able to identify. And likewise in that, the ratio of that is that where the that the false prediction should be minimal and the true prediction should be indicated, better indications of that the system is a robust one and he is able to identify in the larger number such type of the pattern. So true positive and the false negative rate which is mentioned over here. So true positive implies that these are the correct one and that are been identified, and out of this true positive 47907 were being identified, some of them were not being identified. So better such type of the mechanism is having such type of the scenario. The system machine learning technique would give us this type of the pattern, that the based on that multiple decision tree using this random forest techniques, we are being able to identify the 1 lakh patterns of the data of these variations in type, we would be able to explore them and been able to identify that larger amount of that pattern can be easily identified. So another important aspect pertaining to this, especially for the image, is being explored using the CRT based algorithm. So CRT can be applied for the multi asymmetric cryptographic technique with the multi-mode pattern. Okay, so here that specific, unlike that the text image, text, audio, video, we are excluding them. Only if we consider this, the CRT based, the Chinese reminder theorem, especially where all these images are to be, which are to be transmitted from the one source to the another source. In that case, we'll have to take the image, multiple image with the multiple number of the prime numbers. This has to be combined together and the set of that has to be created and transmitted over the communication channel. So in that case, the combining of their information as a part of the single sharing information, which has to be the private key that has to be transmitted over the channel. So in this, the multi-secret image sharing schemes requires the combination of all those values or that key information pertaining to that each and every image, and that has to be XORed like that has been stated over here. The combined information pertaining to that image with that pixel to pixel values that has to be created, and that value, if it has been generated and we combine them together and transmit that, in that case the individual pattern or the key, if it has been identified, even though the man in middle attack would not be able to identify unless all those key does not match. So in that case, it gives this 100% security, having this applied with the pattern of asymmetric cryptography, where that multiple images can be transmitted from the source to destination without any error. And this is what that beauty is. So pertaining to this, the pattern is that we require to map all those images in that pattern with that sliding of the convolutions and covering that entire information, and those image values are to be combined together and generate this value, and in that value which are being generated, and that has to be transmitted over that the data using this CRT with that the single tuple with that multiple values of the information or the images, and then this has to be reverted back. So the decryption algorithms gives this values like here that the again that the reverse process pertaining to that has to be generated. The A dash and R dash values are required to be created, and we'll have to extract all those information using that individual keys which are being taken on, and that information is separated and we get all those values without having any error. So the zero error is being detected while using this CRT based type of the techniques. So the challenges are there that I may be having a computing set of the environment where I do require to apply such type of the network cloud-based networking system where the multiple resources has to generate those type of the variations of the values. If that node would be having such type of that mechanism, in that case, the pattern would give this the better encryption applications and that can be applied, and it gives that less amount of the energy consumption, and it is having that a faster computation time. Okay, implying that the less amount of the times that is being carried out in order to compute them, and that may be related to that the nature and the type of the data which is been used. Like over here, the audio, for the audio it is taking very less time, but for the video it is taking the much time, quite similar or larger than the other one which are being explained over here. So in that case, the variations is there among the various the multi-mode of the data. So the information pertaining to that, if it has been transmitted using the CRT, especially this the image information over the variations of the data, where that the chances of getting the error between the other type of the algorithms are more. If that has been applied with the CRT, it is giving this assurance that no one be able to see that or go through that if that such type of the security measure is being applied. So this is what that we had tried in using the multiple number of the edge devices like the Raspberry Pi that we had used and applied this type of the pattern of the information using the Al-Jamal, Diffie-Hellman, ECC and the RSA and the newer one approach that we have used in combinations with this, naming that as a CRT, and that is giving this better assurance and the corrections that something, if it is been used using this type of the pattern, that would be the best one. So pertaining to this, the box plot is the better way of making the pictorial depiction of the amount of the data and the average count which we have used over here. These are all those average values pertaining to those type of the data patterns which we have applied. So in that, the median values gives this better accurations with that minimal number of the error. So that is what the desirability is using this box plot, which you can see over here, that the CRT based key sharing scheme is outperforming compared to the other, because that is not been visible clearly because of this larger size of this graph. I would state that the man in middle attack, the success means attack success and failure. Failure implies that uh, uh, larger the failure would imply that we would not be able to identify them. Okay, so pertaining to that, the challenges are there, how much we should be able to success them and mitigate such type of the attacks. So in this, other thing is that can we make uh, the further better implementations of making a combination of CRT with the Aljamal or other type of this key exchange algorithm with the lightweight AES in data cryptographic algorithm. The combination of this has been done over the Raspberry Pi, which has been connected with the cloud-based networking system, and try to explore them in the real-time scenario. Having this, the amount of the time would be much lesser than the amount of the time which has been computed over the simulated environment. So this is what that we have tried to look into using this Aljamal with the AES and the CRT crypt algorithm, which has been applied over the Raspberry Pi. So normally in this, the age-based system is to be able to collect all this information, perform certain sort of the computation, where that relevant information has to be compiled there, and that need to be transmitted. While making this type of the operation at the edge, implying that the node device, either that may be of the mobile or that may be of the other IoT device like this Raspberry Pi, which is of the 32-bit and the 4 GB, 16 GB of the memory and the 256 MB of GB of the hard disk space or that SIM space. We can further carry on making such type of that faster computation. So we have to look into that, having such type of the device available which can be used as a edge device edge connected with to the cloud. In that case, the pattern pertaining to that where that the man in middle attack can be there, I do require to identify the nature of the data, the pattern of the data, and their style, and see that if my approach or the algorithm would be, if it would be applied, that would transmit that information to the destination, even though that device would be vulnerable to the attack. So having that the variations of this pattern or style of data encryption techniques and the data transmission using the asymmetric cryptographic technique, we would claim that this device is more sophisticated and robust enough, which would be which is not vulnerable with that man in middle attack and is able to transmit that information with the faster and efficient way, alike that has been used with the other base type of the system. So this is what we had tried to make that model with that system which works as a end node, referred to as a edge node, referred to as a leaf node, referred to as a IoT edge-based system, where we had applied the data and tried to evaluate that how much the power that would be consumed by it, and with that exhaustive load. So in that case, the Raspberry Pi currently nowadays available with that 5,000 rupees, and that the environment pertaining to that can be created from the 5 to 100 and 1,000. The virtual system of the environment we have created using the Libelium and the other cloud-based networking environment, and try to explore them, how much the energy that would be there, and energy consumption that would be there, and how much time it would take in order to make that encryption and decryption. So pertaining to this, the test bed which we have created is having the 1,000 number of the nodes that has been deployed on the on the clouds-based system, connected that has been provided using the Libelium system. So and the controller-based system will have to evaluate that how that system or the network is working. So this is the simplified way of representation of the test-bed scenario that we have created, and we use the multiple type of the attacks similar that which we have discussed earlier, and try to see that now having this hardware device with me, how that better that operation would be, and can I state that this type of the protecting algorithms which we are suggesting would be working better or outperforming compared to the other existing algorithms. So now you know that this Raspberry Pi is the most sophisticated, easy to use, and easy to handle, and it can be empowered with it. So we applied all this operating system that need to be used, and created this virtual scenario using which that emulation can be made, and we use this Libelium hardware. I do have that. Agam, Agam,
Yes, sir.
I'm showing this Libelium hardware to the participant, that this is the hardware. This is the Libelium hardware, which is having this Wi-Fi connectivity, where that this virtual environment which you have tested and performed and that has been used. So I have just disconnected with this multiple connectivity and this that the channel connections are being provided over here with this type of the device. It is costing more than 10 lakh rupees. So the thing is that this type of the scenario that can be easily made to perform such type of that emulation work where we'll have to test in that real time scenario that how that the system would perform. So having said that, the multiple ways of man in middle attack that can be applied, and we apply this Jamal, and the other one is the CRT crypt algorithm. So Al-Jamal is with this AES is mentioned over here and indicates that if those type of that values which are being combined together, whether that is vulnerable or not. So I will not go to that the entire description of this algorithm, but I have already stated that how does it works. So in that case, the step performing to that is that we first started making this key generations and perform this encryption and decryption using the Al-Jamal, and then that encryption, that key, and with that encrypted data that has to be transmitted over the channels and try to look into that whether that is having some man-in-middle attack or not. So if that man-in-middle attack has been identified, the where that attacker would try to extract the data, in that case, whether that mitigation is possible or not, or identifying of that is there. So if that identification of that attack is there, and we would be able to identify, in that case, we can say that the data is being compromised and that has to be isolated. Okay, and otherwise, if that man in middle attack is not there, in that case, the data can be stated as a compromise. Huh? Like data can be, means if it is been the man in middle attack is not been there, in that case the data is not vulnerable and that is a genuine one, and that can be decrypted and the task will be performed. So slightly Agam change this order, slightly there is some indications reflecting this yes or no. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Huh. So in summary, we can say that this CRT, the Chinese reminder theorem, is the robust one for transmitting the secure image over the channel, having this encryption algorithms with that two-key encrypted key handshaking approach. It would be better to transmit that, especially the data which are more secret, more relevant, which are required to be transmitted with a high-speed network pertaining to that area, like the security which is to be explored. And nowadays, for the security purposes, such type of the scenarios and the applications are more, where any such type of that information which are being exchanged in that high-speed communication system, any man in middle attack would lead to the compromisation of the system. And such type of the things should not be there. Pertaining to that, we have tried our level best and use this CRT crypt approach, which was giving us that having this type of the scenario, the system would be never been compromised and the data would be always secure and that would not be extracted by the any man in middle person or the attack. So this is what that expectation should be, and that is what which we have achieved, and giving us that better way of realization of such type of the scenario. Pertaining to this, the challenges which we are trying to do with my team is that the embedding of such type of the encryptions over the field programmable gate array or on that chip, which are being used for this high speed data acquisition, and that has to be embedded with that device, which would lead to make that secure algorithms for transmission and uh, uh, and uh, and the making that a secure networking environment. So pertaining to that, the approach which we have tried to use is better compared to those the generalized type of the approach which is currently being applied for the image nowadays which are being used. So this is what that the key sharing scheme with that CRT encrypt is. One was that which I have discussed with this Aljamal, where we have used this AES embedded with it. Another is this the CRT encrypt, where uh, the operation which is being performed by this CRT algorithm that has been explained over here in the simplified flowchart, where we do start the information input with the prime numbers and we compute with that XOR and then apply this CRT, generates some large random number and XOR that with these keys, and those information are to be shared. So what I am specifying or emphasizing is that if this is the image pertaining to that, every part of that has to be converted into multiple number of the box in the form of the grid, and that has to be shifted in the bitwise, and that image is again that the convolution pertaining to that is to be created and that has to be XOR. Likewise, this has to be done and that final image or that CRT approach will generate this type of that encrypted or secret image by making this XOR, and that is to be transmitted and shared over the channel. And the reverse operation pertaining to that is to be done with that multiple key for each and every uh, that convolution that is being used, and pertaining to that the combine of those images keys which have been generated for each and every image that has to be combined together and transmitted over the channel, where the receiving node would have that entire combined secret image. It would use that and extract all this information or that multiple images which have been transmitted using that a single key. So this is what that approach is, which is mentioned over here in the simplified narrative description. And I have stated this precisely and simplified way using the CRT crypt diagram. Pertaining to that, the certain research evaluations that we have done here, in that case, the amount of the energy pertaining to that which has been consumed by this CRT is less compared to that the existing Aljamal AES algorithms. So in that case, the chances of getting better if we use the simplified way and the better alternate way if it has been available. So the research implies that research that which one would be the best one among all those, and then evaluate them in such a way that the comparison among them can be made, and we would be able to identify that this would be the best scenario pertaining to this type of the nature of the data if it is being used with this type of the approach for the better transmission, better and secure transmission. Having said that, I would stop that. Any question pertaining to that, if it is been there, please ask me. Thank you.
If anyone is having any doubt, they can put up in chat box.
इसको सही करो.
So, sir, I think there
So
are.
I would emphasize that this part of this, the current research work on this cloud-based system, where the variants of the data which is being used for the transmission, I try to explain you that the varieties of that cloud nets or the cloud nets or that the cloud-based network that can be constructed over which the variants of the data can be tested and the algorithms, the secure algorithms that we should apply to make the better transmissions where the vulnerability would be there, and we have to mitigate them with that the comparative analysis of the existing approach that would give us that better visualizations and depiction that which algorithm is outperforming compared to the other. So this is what that achievement that I have explained over here or mentioned over here is the latest research work pertaining to this cloud-based network security. Okay, CRT crypt is that CRT crypt is applied with that Al-Jamal. In our case, the Al-Jamal key handshaking process is being used, and along with this, earlier I mentioned that AES is being used. Unlike that AES, if we are using this for the image, the CRT crypt algorithm, if it is been applied, in that case, that would be the better one. So what happens is that the combined key pertaining to this CRT, the Chinese reminder theorem, that give us that values pertaining to those multiple number of the images. Each of this image key, that single value that has been generated and that are combined together with that more certain prime number values, and that single key has been generated. So in that case, that has to be revert back to the user where he will use that key and perform that XOR operations, and that will give that extraction of the information for each and every image using which that can be decrypted. So pertaining to that, you will pass to read our paper, my paper with that Maruti Deshmukh, Anita Nayan and Mushtaq Ahmed. You will find that multiple such type of the examples pertaining to this CRT crypt. Any other question? You are welcome. So if there is no question, I stop over here. Agam Singh,
Yes,
please
sir.
conclude.
Thank you, sir, for like giving wonderful session on how hybrid.
Speak loudly.
Thank you for giving wonderful session on how hybrid crypt system can like mitigate MITMs and how it can be implied on cloud applications. It was like a good
See,
insight.
one thing which I would like to state that the number of the participants are good at this moment. How much they are? How many they are?
Sir, there are 20 right now.
22. Okay, so majority of them are the research workers who are to learn about this cloud computing environment. This is the latest work which we have done. And that is what I am trying to emphasize. Because of this, you would find that what are those challenges that are there, and the varieties of the applications where such type of that application would be needed to make the secure networking, the cloud-based networking environment. Okay. Thank you, Shanki.
So, sir,
Thank you, sir.
Malayalam ma'am is saying we can as well go with elliptical curve implementation in place of AES.
Could you repeat that loudly?
Ma'am is saying that we can as well go with elliptical curve implementation in place of AES.
Yeah. You can go for that. See, the elliptical curve cryptography is having these two options available, either for this single key and another for the two key. So option is with you that you can make this comparison, that having the single key, how much time it would take, having this two key, how much time it would take. and that can be compared with the other one. So in that case, because it is a it requires the computation time more pertaining to that elliptical curve keys points based on that the decision that the key has to be generated, and that is what that the further exploration is there. So you can go using that type of that research part. Thank you. Thank you, Malaya Gayatri.
So I think
Malayala. Okay, I have correctly pronounced them. Yes.
So I think there are no more queries as of now, so we can conclude. So sir, thank you again for taking this
Okay,
wonderful
thank you very
session.
much. Thank you.
So to the participants, we will meet again tomorrow at 9:30.